Hi, I'm Michelle Chalfant, psychotherapist, holistic life coach, and human just like you, learning to navigate life's challenges. With over 25 years experience, I teach people how to get healthy using the adult chair model. The adult chair model is where simple psychology meets grounded spirituality, and it teaches us how to become healthy adults. From anxiety and depression to codependency and relationship issues, you can use the adult chair for just about anything. Each week, I share practical tips, tools, and advice from myself and a wide range of experts on how to get unstuck, how to live authentically, and how to truly love yourself, all while sitting in your adult chair. Welcome to the Adult Chair Podcast. Hello, everybody. It's Michelle Chalfant, and today is episode 201. I'm, as always, delighted to be here with you. And today we have on the show the lovely Deb Dana. We're talking all about the Polyvagal Theory. Now, many of you are probably like, the what? Let me just tell you for a second. You're going to want to hear this show. It's very, very important if you are interested at all in triggers. That's something everybody likes to talk about. So the Polyvagal Theory was discovered by Stephen Porges. And what he discovered was, let me back up for a second. We all know that there is the sympathetic nervous system. That's when we go into fight or flight, and that's when we get really activated. Then we have the parasympathetic nervous system, which of course is the calming part of our nervous system. What Stephen Porges discovered is that we also have a third, which is the social engagement system. And it's actually a blend of activating and calming that operates out of the vagus nerve. This may sound over your head, but we have broken it down in this podcast. And the reason I had Deb on is because this polyvagal theory is so important for you to understand. If you are someone, again, that ever gets triggered and your body goes into that fight or flight mode, or you get anxious, if you're someone that has depression or chronic fatigue, or let me just tell you what happened to me. Yesterday I was driving, I'd taken my dog to the park to go for a hike. And I realized I came home. I was driving home. I had a lovely time. It was 65 degrees. I'm in nature, my favorite place. And I'm driving home. And I realized suddenly, out of left field, I am so exhausted, I can barely function. I had to go home and take a nap. And I came out of my nap and I said, I think this is something to do with dorsal, which is part of, again, the polyvagal theory. And I said, I think I was in some sort of dorsal shutdown. All I wanted to do was sleep. So I sat and journaled about it. And sure enough, I had some thoughts that triggered me that were so benign, but they triggered me into this shutting down of my nervous system. And I had to take a nap to come out of it. So anyway, the nervous system, understanding how your nervous system works, and everyone's nervous system is unique, is so important for our emotional health. It's how we stay in balance, which is exactly what we are talking about today. So I cannot wait. Deb and I had a fabulous conversation about trauma. Again, depression, anxiety, panic, chronic fatigue, everything you can think of, triggers, but also what then you can do about it for yourself if you are triggered, if you are someone that lives with anxiety, if you are like me in this dorsal shutdown is what it's called in the polyvagal theory. So we had a fabulous show, so much fun. So we're going to get to Deb in a moment. I first just want to share with you or remind you guys, if you are interested, I want to remind you, we've had a price drop. Who doesn't love that, by the way? I've changed some things around in my coaching program, and we've had a price drop. So check it out. We are still taking applications until March 22nd. We have another 10 days until the application process is closed. We are taking applications until March 22nd. So if you're interested in becoming a coach or adding the adult chair to your current business in any way, shape, or form, we would love to have you join us. So just go to theadultchair.com/certification for that to check out our new price, as well as what the program is all about. Secondly, I just want to say we do have the Adult Chair Workshop in Nashville, April 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. Again, Everything is on theadultchair.com. So come check that out. We'd love to have you in Nashville. All right, let's get to Deb. Deb Dana, LCSW, is a clinician and consultant specializing in working with complex trauma and is a consultant to the Traumatic Stress Research Consortium in the Kinsey Institute. She's trained in internal family systems and sensory motor psychotherapy. Deb developed the Rhythm of Regulation clinical training series and lectures internationally on ways the polyvagal theory informs work with trauma survivors. Deb is the author of the Polyvagal Theory in Therapy, Engaging the Rhythm of Regulation, Polyvagal Exercises for Safety and Connection, which is 50 client-centered practices. That is coming out in a few months. And she co-edited with Stephen Porges, Clinical Applications of the Polyvagal Theory, the Emergence of Polyvagal-Informed Therapies. I cannot tell you how excited I am to have Deb on the show. She is a superstar to me because she knows this polyvagal theory. So we're going to jump right over to Deb's interview right now. Welcome, Deb Dana. I just told you before, I'm beyond excited to have you on. And thank you so much for being here with us on the Adult Chair podcast today.
Well, I am really excited to be here and learn a little about the Adult Chair podcast and talk to your listeners now.
Yeah. And this is like, I love the polyvagal theory and the work that you're doing. And of course, Stephen Porges, but you're really taking it out into the world. So thank you for everything that you're doing. Like, thank you. And I was telling you that I fall asleep. I listen to your book over and over and over again when at night. It's on audiobook. So I just feel like I know this theory so well and you so well. So thank you for all that you're doing. And we're going to jump right in to tell us, because this is a big word. It's a buzzword now. A lot of people are throwing this word around, polyvagal theory. What is it? What is the polyvagal theory?
But you're right. You hear polyvagal theory all over the place nowadays. And I love that I get to kind of tell you how I would explain polyvagal theory. So polyvagal theory, developed by my dear friend and colleague, Stephen Porges, is an updated version of what the autonomic nervous system is and what it does and how it helps us navigate our daily living. And in its simplest form, it has 3 organizing principles: hierarchy, neuroception, and co-regulation. Mm-hmm. And once you sort of get the gist of those 3 organizing principles, you understand this big thing called polyvagal theory. So the nervous system is the foundation of all of our lived experience. So even though we like to, live in story or feelings or thoughts or behaviors, really polyvagal theory and the autonomic nervous system are where all of those things emerge from. So it's really important for us to understand this nervous system and how it works.
The autonomic nervous system, break that down even a little bit for people that are listening and they're like, what's that?
Right. So the central nervous system is the brain and the spinal cord. Mm-hmm. And the autonomic nervous system is another system that involves parasympathetic and sympathetic. And those 2 branches of the system join together to create what's called the autonomic nervous system. And mostly the autonomic nervous system manages your automatic behaviors, automatic biological processes. The interesting thing about polyvagal theory is that it has brought these automatic processes into explicit awareness. And my work on polyvagal theory is really about helping us become active operators of this autonomic nervous system so that we have some management over how it's shaped, how we reshape it, and how it operates in the world, which I think is, for people moving through the world, is an interesting concept to think, oh, I have some choice over the system that really works automatically in service of my survival. But I can also, what I like to say, befriend it, get to know it, and then reshape it in some way. Yeah.
So what I hear you saying then is the autonomic nervous system, it's automatic. So would we say that it's unconscious?
It's below the level of conscious awareness. So yeah, And it also has connections to your cortical, your cortex, and your thinking brain. So it's this lovely communication that happens between the body and the brain.
So what you're doing though with polyvagal theory is to really I'm putting it in my words, making it conscious. Like, so we're taking that system that's unconscious and automatic and we're bringing awareness to it and consciousness. And then that's how we change this. Okay.
Exactly. Because
Okay.
if it stays unconscious, if it stays what we call implicit, we
Mhm.
can't do anything with it. It's just working in the background. So we bring it into conscious awareness, make it explicit, and then work with it. Yes.
I love it. So the reason that one of the things I want to talk to you about, and I have 5 pages.
Oh boy.
And we're going to do it in less than an hour.
Uh-huh.
Um, so this is one of the reasons why I wanted to have you on. Again, there are so many, but here's one. And I just want to give people an example of why we need to understand what the polyvagal theory is. I have a lot of people that when they think about their childhood or their growing up years or whenever, they beat themselves up. Why did I let so and so talk to me like that? Why did I let my mother, my father treat me like that? Why, when I was getting raped, I didn't run away? Why? And they've lived a life of blame and self-judgment. And I think that what happened was really a good thing because it was their nervous system taking over, right? The automatic, or you say
Right.
autonomic nervous
Yeah.
system. So it was happening automatically to actually help them. The body was doing something helpful, but they don't know that. So can you please educate people on why this is not a bad thing, that they could not react or leave or say stop? Please
Right.
talk about this. Yes.
Right. Yeah. So yes, your autonomic nervous system works in micro moment to micro moment in service of your survival. And so, again, it's our brain that makes up the story that says, I should have or I shouldn't have. But the nervous system is just enacting a survival response based on the situation. And so the nervous system makes no moral meaning or doesn't assign motivation. It simply acts in service of survival. We humans make moral meaning. We then judge ourselves or blame ourselves or suffer shame, which is a common experience. When, if we can look through the lens of the autonomic nervous system, we can say, oh, my biology was acting to support my safety in that moment. And in that moment, it was needed. In this moment now, perhaps it's not needed in the same way. And maybe we need to re-educate the nervous system. We need to reshape it. But in that moment, it was doing what it needed to do to keep me safe. And whether that was a sympathetic fight or a sympathetic runaway, which is that mobilizing system, or whether it was a dorsal vagal disappear, collapse, become numb, disappeared, become invisible. The nervous system was simply doing what it thought it needed to do. And you don't get to choose. We don't get to choose our survival response. So, I often work with people and they say, if you look at the person you love and look at them through the lens of the nervous system and are able to say, it's not that that person wants to be this way or doesn't want to show up for me right now. It's that their biology will not allow them to. It's a very different experience. So if we
Yeah.
do that for ourselves and say, oh, my nervous system is doing something on my behalf right now. And so I can't biologically do this other thing that I might want to. And then we can begin to work with that.
Talk a little bit more. Thank you for that. Talk a little bit more about the sympathetic nervous system. Talk about that. Because again, we hear the terms fight, flight, and the new one for me was this dorsal shutdown. Like
Yeah.
I didn't even know about that until I don't know how long ago, but that when I learned about that, I was like, oh my goodness. So talk a little bit about what happens in the sympathetic nervous system.
So the sympathetic nervous system is a system that mobilizes us for action, right? Its survival responses are active, either aggression, fight, or escape, flight, right? And then in its non-reactive, non-survival role, which it has as well, it regulates breath rhythms and heart rhythms and gives us energy to move and play and passion and all of that. So we don't want to think of these systems as always survival. They're survival and everyday roles. So that's the sympathetic nervous system. And many, many people recognize sympathetic nervous system because it's big and noisy and loud and you can see it in action. But the polyvagal theory, Steve's real contribution is this dorsal vagal. experience that was not well mapped, described, identified until Steve came along and did that. And this is a system of immobilization. There's a draining of energy. There's a sense of becoming invisible, some flavor of disappearing. In its strongest response, it's dissociation, but there are lots of flavors of feeling like I'm not really here, I'm just going through the motions. That's a flavor of dorsal, and it's a protection. And the nervous system is simply saying, if you were fully here and present, it would be too dangerous. So I'm going to make it possible for you to survive. Right. And that's the dorsal experience. And then in its non-reactive everyday role, it runs our digestion. So it's this really important system. So, sympathetic and dorsal work together along with ventral, which is this newest system that helps us socialize and connect and, move through the world with a sense of organization and safety. And when I say connect, I want to make sure that I say connect not just to others, but connect to myself, connect to the world around me, and connect to spirit. And those connections are emergent properties. They come from this regulated ventral vagal place. Yeah.
So the goal then would not be to be in parasympathetic all the time. It's a balance, is what I'm hearing you say.
Right. So the goal is not to be in ventral all the time, right? The goal is to know how to get back to ventral when I get pulled into sympathetic or dorsal. And I think people often think the goal is to be regulated all the time.
Yeah.
That's unachievable, of course. And probably would take some of the flavor of life away, right? We need all of these experiences. So yeah, I like to call it, I think our autonomic nervous system inherently knows how to get to ventral. So I call that our home. We have a home in ventral, all of us, no matter what our history, the nervous system knows how to get there and longs to be in ventral. So that's our home. And then we travel to these other places, right? And so it's really, do we have a map so that we know how to get back to ventral? And dis-ease, either psychological or physical dis-ease, doesn't come from getting pulled out of ventral. It comes from being stuck in survival.
Yes.
So being able to find our way back. So this flexible response means that I have all of the flavors of all of those states all the time, and I can find my way back to enough ventral to be regulated. Yeah.
So are we born then, you're saying, I think I'm hearing you, that we're born with the ability to, our nervous system at birth, is this the right way to say it? Balanced ventral? Is that the way to say it? Or just ventral, which is balanced?
Right. So let's think of it this way. If you think of ventral as holding sympathetic and dorsal in a warm embrace, that's a regulated nervous system. We have enough ventral on board to hold sympathetic and dorsal so they can work in the background doing what they need to do. It's when ventral can't hold that we have either a sympathetic survival or dorsal vagal survival response, and we suffer from that. When we come into the world, as long as we come into the world as a full-term baby, then our ventral vagal system is ready to take on its job. And what do we do when we first come into the world? We look for someone else to go regulate for that safe other person. That's a biological need to feel safely connected to another human. And we think about that with babies and then with children, but that is a need that is lifelong. We have a lifelong need to feel safely connected to other people. I like to talk nervous systems. Our nervous system is longing forever to be in connection with other nervous systems.
Yeah, I agree 100%. And is there any sort of, do you blend attachment theory at all into the polyvagal theory?
You certainly can. The state of the nervous system sets up the capacity for attachment to happen.
That is what I was thinking right there, what you just said. Yeah. Like if my nervous system is off, how in the world am I supposed to attach properly?
Right. And if, you come into the world and your caregiver's nervous system is dysregulated, then you don't get the benefit of a regulated nervous system and learn how to come into safe co-regulation, right? And self-regulation is built on top of co-regulation.
Oh,
so
interesting.
We have to co-regulate safely first in order to then learn how to self-regulate.
What about in utero? Do you find that if someone that's pregnant and they're in an abusive situation or they don't want the baby, does that baby's nervous system get affected even in utero? In
Yeah,
utero?
the research on nervous system response in utero has been on anxious and depressed moms, and
Mm.
the ways that this gets transmitted to the baby. There's a sweet research on touch. Touch is so important, and that when a pregnant mom touches her stomach, that the baby reaches out to touch the inside of the stomach. So there's a
Oh,
connection. I know, is that sweet?
that's so
There's a
sweet.
connection that
Yeah.
happens already.
Yeah.
Before birth, the nervous system is being shaped by the environment. And, if we want to think about that for a minute, there's this concept called neuroception,
Hmm.
which is the way the nervous system takes in cues of safety and danger. And it takes it in through what's happening inside your body, but it takes it in through the environment as well. So, a baby in utero is swimming in an environment where it's taking in cues of safety and danger. So that's in the environment inside our bodies, and then between nervous systems, it's looking for cues of safety and danger. So all of that's going on all the time. And, you can see that when a baby comes into the world, immediately there's this sense of, who is this little one? How has this little one been
Yeah.
so far? And then that, hopeful and beauty part of polyvagal theory is that the nervous system is always being shaped. So even if
Mm.
I here in my, I'm 66, and whatever I am at 66 now is still being shaped, right? I can reshape every moment by putting attention on these patterns, and befriending my nervous system and figuring out, well, what does need to happen? What would I like? How would I like to shape it now? Yeah.
That was my next question is, so if our nervous system when we were born, I'm thinking about myself and I know other people that had colic. I cried for 22 hours a day for 9 months.
Oh,
My poor mother, like, I cannot even imagine. Nobody would babysit me. So I know in the work, my personal work that I've done, my nervous system, it was, high alert, like from the very beginning. But so my question is, and I know this is true for me, I feel like our nervous system, like you said, and I want to say this because I'm sure other people are thinking, oh my gosh, when I was in the womb, my mother was, but our nervous systems can change and they're always ever changing, correct?
yes. So the nervous systems are changing moment to moment. So you're never stuck with what you have. You
Hmm.
can reshape it in a variety of ways. And it's really in putting the attention and bringing intention to that shaping that we get to choose
Yeah.
how we shape, and how we engage with our nervous system. So yeah, if you had a pattern of sympathetic high charge,
Yeah.
hypervigilance, I'm just getting to know you here, but you don't give off that energy now. So you've reshaped your system in beautiful ways,
Thank you.
right?
That's a compliment coming from you, honestly. Thank you.
Beautiful. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you.
Mhm.
So we were talking about fight or flight, dorsal. I would love to go over some examples of, again, what is that like? I realize I've had clients in my office. I'm like, I think you just entered into fight or flight. And they're like, really? What does that mean? I'm like,
Mhm. Mhm. Right.
so
Yeah.
can we really go into what that, and I know a lot of people know what this is, but I would like to hear it from you. Like, what does that feel like for us? And then also, my favorite now, dorsal. Talk to us about
Mhm.
that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
I have
So
an example. I have a couple examples for you on that, but I'd like to hear what you have
good.
to say
Yeah.
about that.
Yeah. So, that sympathetic mobilization that feels like this big energy, overwhelming energy, too much energy in my system to for me to be organized in some way, and move through the world. And you sense that in yourself or in someone sitting across from you, when you can feel that powerful energy starting
Hmm.
to activate, and it feels disorganized. It doesn't feel like it's leading in a direction. It can feel, the voice can become really loud, in the fight mode. It feels like someone is coming after you.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be in a huge way. You're again, through your nervous system, you were taking it in as a cue of danger. So it can be a tone of voice. It can be a movement. The muscles usually get more rigid. There's this sitting up straight. There's this leaning forward, coming at. There's an eye gaze that happens. And then in flight, there's this active, I need to get out of here now. Right? There's that sense of get me out of here. I can't stay here. So sympathetic is always very, very active. There's a ton of energy going on. And that's really how you feel it in the room. It feels like too much energy for this person to manage in a way that's going to move them forward effectively, because fight and flight are simply survival responses. And when you enter a survival response, your thinking brain doesn't go with you.
Yeah, it turns itself off.
Yes.
There is no logic. It's gone.
Right. The inability to plan or problem solve. Right. So, and then in dorsal, there's a lack of energy. You really feel all the energy draining from your body from, it's like this sort of, I often, for myself, because for me, dorsal is a very familiar place. You were sympathetic growing up. Dorsal was my home away from home, so to speak. And it's this sense of sort of taking a step back so that I'm still here, but I'm not really here. That's sort of the first flavor of dorsal. It's this disconnect because things don't feel safe, right? As in sympathetic's danger. Dorsal's even deeper than that. It feels, like this, metaphorical life threat that's happening, because you can get quiet, but be ventral and be perfectly safe and present. But in dorsal, when you get quiet, the energy drains away and you feel endangered. And so sometimes there's a numbing of your body. Your brain is fuzzy. There's this fogginess. There's this, I need to be invisible. As for kids, if you think about this, the sympathetic place is this big acting out. That kid, you always know where that one is. They're getting the attention. They're getting sent to therapy because they're acting out in some way. And dorsal can often be this being unnoticed. Oh, never talks up is never a problem. They never talk up or anything. And I'm curious, are they really there? Right? Because it's the ability to fly under the radar, not because I want to, but because it's unsafe for me to be seen.
So invisible. Someone that feels invisible would be in dorsal. Yeah. What causes someone's nervous system, or maybe, I don't know if we know this or not, maybe you do. Why does one nervous system choose, let's say, fight or flight or dorsal? How does that happen?
I'm not sure we really know that yet. And I always tell people, because I have, work with clients to say, well, why didn't I go to sympathetic? And I said, I don't know. Your nervous system decided that dorsal was the safest place to be. Right. And we know from many, many people, dorsal is the safest place to be, because fighting back would have meant death or would have meant more harm. Whereas that collapse response is, allows me to live to fight another day, so to speak. Right.
Right.
You don't get to choose that. I teach a lot, and I'll say, so if something really bad happened, if there was this big, loud thing that came in through the window right now, you don't get to choose whether you run, fight, or collapse on the floor. Your nervous system's going to choose for you. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. Fascinating. I think about, I did the Gottman training many, many years ago. And, when he talks about an eye roll is contempt. And I've had, couples in my office, and one of them will do an eye roll and the other one, I watch it. It's fascinating because the other person will either go into a fit rage, or I can feel their energy. It leaves. I'm like, well, this is fascinating. Just from an eye roll. And that's something too with our nervous system. I want people to become aware of. It could be an eye roll. It could be the tone of voice triggers that nervous system.
Absolutely.
What else what I'd love to talk about is the very subtle things so the eye, again, movement of the eyes, the tone of voice, movement of the hands. I have Italian in me. So it's I'm moving my hands all the time. I'm like this all the time, right? Yeah. Moving the head, lower. So, but it could be lowering the voice, but going deeper, or a higher tone of voice, right? These are subtle things that are throwing people into fight, flight, dorsal.
Or bringing them to ventral.
Yes.
Right? So you're talking about the social engagement system, which is these cranial nerves that combine part of our autonomic response patterns to take in cues of safety or danger, So warning or welcome from the eyes, from the tone of voice, we call that prosody,
Mm-hmm.
from the ways you move your head, from the social gestures we make. All of that is your nervous system taking in these cues below the level of your conscious awareness again. So an eye roll is yes, that gets a response. A certain breath, a sigh, often gets a response from other people. And again, when we educate people to say a sigh means your nervous system is looking for a bit of resetting, looking for some regulation. Right. And so if you can look at the other person who sighs and go, oh, so their system just needed some regulation, which is much better than saying, wow, they're bored with me or they're frustrated with me. Right.
Right.
It's about their system regulating. Eye gaze, very simple shifts in the eye gaze from, we have this stare that we sometimes do. And then we have this neutral look. Right. And both a stare and neutral are often signs of danger to another nervous system. The stare, because it does come with an agenda.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the neutral, because there's not enough information for me to know what's going on over there. Right.
You're reminding me, I worked, 25 years ago in a prison, as I did an internship in a prison. And when we were walking down the halls, they said, do not give anyone eye contact.
Yeah.
Do not look at anyone in this. I thought, fascinating. I said, what will happen? And they said, you might spark a fight. They might come after you. I was like, whoa, just from, again, looking at someone. It's fascinating. I grew up with an uncle that was a rager. And right before he went, and because, we're Italian, we all live together every summer at the lake house and every weekend. And, we're all enmeshed, all in one house all the time. And he would perch his lips like, that was watching me. Yeah, it was like, and then I knew, here it comes, right? He's going after my mom. He's pissed about something. And guess what? I married someone that he's not a rager, but my husband will sometimes, when he's defending himself, he does the exact freaking same perching of the lips.
And there you go.
It's 25 years of this. And I noticed, the more conscious I become, of course, with my life, I noticed when I started becoming conscious around that, I'm like, wow, I am bracing for rage. And he does not rage. Like, but my body would be in freeze mode. And then I would check out. I'd just leave, I don't do it anymore, but it's fascinating that something as simple as that, like, boom, my whole nervous system would go into high alert.
Right. Because it's responding to a familiar cue of danger. We call, that neuroception again, which is coming up with a mismatch. It was a match with your uncle, with your husband's a mismatch. And so we bring perception, we bring awareness to neuroception. And then we add that next level of discernment. And my question that I ask people to consider is, in this moment, in this place with this person, is that level of response needed? Right.
Yes.
And then you can begin to say, oh, it's my husband. It's not my uncle.
Yeah.
He has the same thing, but he goes a different place with it. And you're beginning to teach your nervous system that this cue is a different cue now, even though it looks the same, it's a different cue.
And this might be different for everyone, but is there a timeline? Like, how long does it take for us to like re-regulate our nervous system? I need black and white here. Like, put it in a box for me. It takes 6.5 months.
Can't give you the box. Sorry about that.
I like the boxes though, Deb.
We all do. We all do. And it really, it's so dependent. It's dependent on, how your system's been shaped, how long it's been shaped in that way, how intensive you are about doing the reshaping. I'm a therapist, so, I see clients once a week, and I come to discover pretty quickly that that's not enough, right? So, I would always give my clients something to do between sessions to keep shaping their nervous system, because it's being shaped all the time. And so we bring this conscious awareness to it. So, I can't give you an answer to that.
Dang it. I want that timeline.
Everybody wants to know. I know. I guess we just say, it's possible. I guess the other thing I would like to say for people when they're tracking their changes is come up with some very simple, nuanced landmarks to look for, benchmarks to look for. Don't look for the great, big, huge change. It will come, but along the way, you're making these little changes that are really important to track and pay attention to, and that keeps us in the process of making the change.
So what would that look like? Like something like we can use me for an example. Like so for me, like I do that positive self-talk, like, okay, it's just Graham. He's perching his lips. He's upset. He's defending. He's not going to rage. And so the more I'm able to stay in my body, that's progress. So what if someone, so dorsal again is when there's that total shutdown. So they may notice, hey, wait a minute, I'm halfway gone, but I'm sort of here too. So
Right.
little.
Yes. So for both of those examples, what you're saying is you have enough ventral on board to be aware of what's going on. And so, I'm always looking for how can we have, just call it like a critical mass of ventral so that we're not totally hijacked by sympathetic dorsal.
Yeah.
And then, we measure by, frequency, intensity, and duration. How often is it happening? Less often? Is it happening less intensely? And does it not last as long? Those are all markers of change, which are beautiful. It doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means it's happening differently. Which again, if we can think about that, the question we want to ask ourselves is, what's something different that happened today? Not something better or worse, but what's something different? The nervous system is not a good, bad system. It's simply a system that acts. So how did it do something differently today?
I like that. I want to share an example. I have a friend of mine that dated this guy for years. He was a wonderful guy. The day she got married, he became, well, he must have been the whole time, but like an alcoholic, verbally abusive, and just did a 180. And this girl came from a lovely childhood, like no big issues, everything, healthy nervous system. Okay. Married this guy. He changed overnight. And his alcoholism came out, verbally abusive, a tiny bit of even physical abuse. And making a long story short again, she was married a few years, went through a divorce. And in the middle of the divorce, there was a restraining order because he was, for many reasons, I'm not going to go into all that. But what I found fascinating was, again, her nervous system growing up, she didn't have that dorsal, everything was very in balance. And he would so much, I was with her a few times. He would text her and I would watch her. It's fascinating. And I get eye glazing of the eyes. And I would sit and go, you're gone. And she goes, I feel like I left the state. I don't know what just happened. And it shocked her. Right. So just that would sense, and this is why I want to share this, because I think this happens to a lot of us and we don't know what's happening. Right. What's happening is that, it's the nervous system hijack. We're going into dorsal.
Absolutely. Because the nervous system is intuiting a life threat. And for someone else, that might put them into an active sympathetic flight.
Yes,
right?
Exactly.
We have no idea, but
so we don't know why her system would go to dorsal versus fight or flight. Yeah, right. It was fascinating to watch. I watched her, I say, wow. And I was with a few of my friends when we were with her one time and the text came in or a phone call would come in and it'd go to voicemail. Yeah. And it was like whoosh, gone completely. One time I was with her and I was sitting next to her and I looked down in her phone, and the text came in and I put my hands very gently on her shoulders and I said, stay with me. We're here together. Let's feel our feet on the floor. And so for her, if someone's listening to this and they're saying, oh my gosh, that's me or that's my whomever, it's that becoming conscious and becoming aware and self-talk, like being conscious with your talk. And what else would you say?
What I loved about what you said, because when we go to dorsal, we feel as though we are alone in the world where no one is ever going to find us again. What I love about what you said was that you made physical contact and said, I'm right here. What you're talking to her nervous system. Don't talk to her brain because her brain's not there to.
Yeah.
You're talking to her nervous system saying, I'm right here with you. My nervous system is here with yours. You are safe with me in this moment. Because in order to navigate the world in a way that feels nourishing, we have to feel safe.
Yeah.
And her nervous system felt a life threat. And you were saying, I'm here. And then you added physical touch. So, physical touch is great. We don't need it because your nervous system was talking to hers very carefully and very lovingly saying, I'm right here with you. Right.
Yeah.
So that's what's needed. And when we go to dorsal, until we're really used to it and know how to, we'll be more skillful in coming back, we need another person there to help us feel that safety, feel that it's safe to be with another person and that they're not going to let us just float away, because that's the feeling. You're untethered in the world and you're floating away somewhere and can't find
Yeah.
your way back. So that was really beautiful what you offered.
Yeah.
You
And I'm hearing you again say it's about co-regulating. Like, so if I'm not in fight or flight or dorsal
Mhm,
and you are, I can just sit in the same room as you,
mhm,
next to you,
mhm.
and maybe not even touch you. Of course, touch is helpful from what you're saying, but that helps you to come back down.
Yes. So in dorsal, you're letting the nervous system know there's another nervous system here with you. And
Mhm.
it's a system that's anchored in ventral, and I'm going to stay right here with you and hold you safely until you can come back into ventral too. In
Mm.
sympathetic, you want to be an active nervous system, because if you're in that lovely, calm, kind place, that other nervous system goes, either doesn't recognize you at all or goes, oh, that one doesn't understand anything about me. So in that one, you're in an active place, still ventral, still caring and compassionate about, wow, I feel the energy that's going on right now.
Yeah.
And I'm right here with you. So it's still I'm right here with you, but it's a very different I'm right here with you. And you do
So,
that through your tone of voice and your movements and the way that you're using your system.
so wait, maybe I missed that. But so when do we show up with that nervous system versus just a calm, soothing nervous system if someone is off?
So you show up with a, hey, I'm right here with you and I can feel you got a lot going on, when they're in sympathetic.
Oh, and they're in sympathetic. And
You've got
they're so wait, and that would mean they're in fight or flight or freeze.
Mhm,
Gotcha. So fight or freeze, freeze, freeze. We want to have that. Hey, I'm here. I'm right here. Come on, that kind of nervous
So
system.
fight or flight, yes. Freeze is a complicated blend, right?
I was
Because
just going to say that's kind of dorsal, right?
well, there's really two freezes. There's the dorsal freeze, which is this full collapse, and I'm frozen because I have absolutely no energy in my system. I can't move. And so in that case, I just need you to sit next to me and be send me energy and just be very compassionate and let me know that I'm not alone. The
Mm-hmm.
other freeze is a blended state of sympathetic and dorsal at the
Mm-hmm.
same time, because dorsal is immobilizing me, but
Yeah.
sympathetic has me totally rigid, and it's that deer in the headlights
Yes.
experience.
Yeah.
And so with that one, it's a little more complicated how you show up. And probably the showing up is, oh, wow, I can see that you are frozen right now. Because as it begins to unfreeze, there's going to be this quick
To get
burst
out. Yeah.
of
Yeah.
getting
Yeah.
away. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So then what do you do? So you're,
So that one is that what's going to happen as this person begins
yeah.
to unfreeze, and I'd probably be, showing up with a little more containing
Mm-hmm.
energy and saying,
Mm-hmm.
"Wow, I get that you're really in freeze right now, and when you begin to unfreeze, it's going to be a burst of sympathetic energy, and I just want you to know I'm right here."
Mm.
Something like that.
Can you do this over the phone with someone?
You can. I think phone is more challenging if you haven't already established a relationship. And I know nowadays, teletherapy, telehealth,
Mm-hmm.
therapy via whatever these platforms are,
Yeah.
coaching via these platforms is popular, is needed in many
Mhm.
cases, because we can't be in the same room with many of the people we're working with.
And I would guess that kind of like you and I were saying prior to this whole interview, like, can we do it with video? Because it's so much easier to look at you. So I would guess if I'm I feel more with you versus on the telephone, I can't see you.
Yes. Phone,
So
phone is much more difficult than
it
having.
must help with regulation if I can see you and I'm feeling
Absolutely.
your energy and I'm looking at your facial expressions, right? Yeah,
Absolutely.
that's what I would
I
guess.
also get a sense of your environment, and you get a sense of mine, because
Mhm.
environmental cues are huge.
Yeah.
On the phone, we miss face, we miss environment, we miss so much. My nervous system really struggles with just phone. It really
Yeah.
does. I
Yeah.
need
Yeah.
the visual. So these platforms that allow video are really, really helpful. And I think we can do some really good work this way, because even though we just met a few minutes ago, our
Yeah.
nervous systems are feeling a connection,
They're
right?
happy.
Yeah,
Yeah, for sure. For
yeah,
sure.
yeah.
I had an experience. I don't want to tell you about my experience. I want to say, I know people that have had maybe abuse in their childhoods, and I know that then as adults,
Mhm,
they get thrown into some sort of dorsal where they're doing, Netflix for 3 days, can't
mhm,
get off the couch kind of thing, or eating, or not eating, right?
mhm, mhm.
What do these people do that are by themselves and can't co-regulate? I guess that needs to be an awareness. When people go, I'm just checking out. Is checking out the same thing as dorsal shutdown, or is it different?
So lots of questions.
Give me a box. I need some boxes, Deb.
I know. Give you some boxes.
I know. I gave you four questions right there.
Yeah. So once we know our system, then I can feel I'm being pulled towards dorsal. And rather than simply turning on a Netflix series that goes for 3 days and just being unaware and just being pulled into it, I can say, oh, so one of the things that I know helps right now is to go turn on Netflix and just let it go for a bit. Rather than being sucked in, I make an intentional choice to move into that. And in order to make that intentional choice, I have to have a little bit of ventral on board to be able to do that. I work with my clients to create a regulating resources map. And I love that you use Netflix. It's on my regulating resources map.
Oh,
it's
perfect.
one of the things I use when I'm feeling that need to escape. Right. And I will, and for me, I love a series because I don't have to push any buttons. It just,
nope. It's automatic. It just keeps going.
And if when I do it, I say, oh, okay, I'm using this regulating resource, I'm not just going to be there for 3 days doing it. I'm going to do it for a while. And then I'm going to say, where am I now? Right. So yeah, it's really a question of getting to know your nervous system and knowing, what are the resources? And resource simply means it's something that's going to help me begin to move back towards ventral.
Yeah.
So if my resource is to even crawl into bed, pull the covers up over my head and nap for 2 hours, it's a resource because I'm making an intentional choice to use it rather than just going to bed and being there for 3 days, which is not a resource, right?
I hear you say the same thing over and over again, which I love. My intention. I'm intentionally, it's bringing consciousness. That's living in our adult chair. It's like, I'm bringing consciousness in and saying, I'm going to choose to watch Netflix. Right. Because I need to decompress right now. Or I'm going to choose to get in bed. It's when we're unconscious about it. That's the problem. Right. I had an experience in the fall. I took an experiential shadow training with 8 other people. I love intense work. I love doing my own work. It's to me that I know I'm crazy. I think it's fun, but I love to uncover and discover more of Michelle. So, anyway, long story short, I went to this training. It was Deb. So intense, which I was like, this is wonderful. This is wonderful. But after the first day, I said, there's only 8 of us and there was a helper. And I said, wait a minute. Who's grounding us? Like, where's the decompression at the end of the day? Where's the, there wasn't any. And Deb, oh my gosh, by day 3, I was shaking. Like I was sitting at lunch and I was shaking. And they're like, oh, you're processing. I'm like, this doesn't feel right to me. After 8 days, I'm flying home. Oh, it was intense. People that had horrific childhood and from the unconsciousness, the shadows coming out and they're acting it out and we're role playing with them. It was so fun, but also there was a part of me that's like, this isn't right. It was fascinating because it was all about dorsal, which I didn't know. I knew about dorsal, not to this level. And I want to share this because people need to hear that this can happen. So I made it through the week. It's a little bit like, I don't know if I want to engage so much. By the time I'm on the airplane home, I started getting tired. I fell asleep in Denver, back to Nashville, and got back to Nashville. The next day I got up, I'm like, okay, I'm going to take a day. The next day after that, I got up. I sat down to do work and answer emails. I could not put a sentence together. I was sleeping 14 hours a day, if not longer. All I wanted to do was sleep. I had a week of that, right? And I said, God, maybe I have mono. Like I said, something, I kept saying to my friends, something's not right. Thank God I have a teacher and a friend who knows this very well. And we spoke after a week and I said, tell me, something's not right. And I told her about my experience. She goes, you're in freaking dorsal shutdown. And I said, really? I thought I had mono. She said, go get in the shower and take a cold shower, cold, hot, get your face wet with cold water on armpits, spine. I want you to splash cold water on your face. And all I wanted to do was isolate, right?
Right.
And she said, go get with people. And I said, I don't want to. I'm so exhausted. I think I have mono. She says, you don't have mono. You're in complete dorsal shutdown.
Yeah. Wow.
Fast. You know what? I'm grateful though now on the other end of it. Cause I'm like,
Yeah.
it was way too intense. And I'm not going to
it's
speak.
interesting because it was the way we would put it in polyvagal languages, that was too big a challenge for your nervous system.
Oh yeah.
Right. And there weren't ventral anchors around, and you couldn't have these moments of rest. And I think, your experience was in a training, but I think in life, this happens for us all the time, that we override what our nervous system is telling us.
Yes. Yeah.
And we need to learn to listen and pay attention. And then what I like to say is, we want to stretch our nervous system, but not stress our nervous system.
Ooh, that's good.
As soon as we move from stretch to stress, we go into a survival response. And once you go into a survival response, you are not learning anything. You are not processing anything, because your system is simply in survival. So, we want to be really careful how we move through life, and what we want our nervous system to do, and how we listen and say, that this feels like too much today for me to engage in. Yeah.
It was for me, Deb, but it was fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
And she pushed me. I had dinner plans. It was my birthday, I remember. And I said, I can't go. I'm exhausted. She said, I need you to go. Please go. And I pushed. So I was yawning the whole time. I got to dinner and I sat with these people.
Yeah.
All of a sudden, my energy started coming up. It was fascinating. I loved it. I loved the experience of it. Was such a contrast.
Your nervous system was around other nervous systems it felt safe with, and it felt welcomed.
Yeah.
That's right.
And then within like a few days, boom, I was back to myself. And I thought, wow, what an example of dorsal shutdown. I know it. I know when I'm completely in it now. That's for sure.
And for people who don't have safe nervous systems to be around when they're feeling that, I invite my clients to just go be in a place where there are other people around.
Yeah.
So your nervous system is reminded there are other nervous systems. I don't have to engage with them, but I'm with other nervous systems. They can feel the energy. Yeah.
And you don't have to think anything about it.
Nope.
Just, your bodies are co-regulating with someone else that's in bad. That's what's so cool about this. I love it. Oh my gosh. I have so many more questions. We only have 7 minutes. Okay. I'm going to be quick. Talk about, we need 2 hours. Talk about, if you wouldn't mind, fascinating to me too, the physical ailments that come with someone that might sit in dorsal shutdown more than, fight or flight freeze, because we're looking at the diaphragm, what happens below the diaphragm versus above the diaphragm. So fight, flight is above, dorsal shutdown below. Talk about some of the illnesses that people might be experiencing because of the nervous system.
And each, sympathetic has its, because when you're in a sympathetic fight flight, your HPA axis, the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis, is engaged. And so you're flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, which brings its own health challenges that we know about. And then in dorsal, your digestion is impacted, because dorsal runs your digestion only when ventral is connected with it. So when you're in a dorsal shutdown, you've lost ventral, and your digestion's just all over the place.
So like people would have like irritable bowel. They would have all of these kinds of things to do with intestinal issues, digestion issues versus
chronic fatigue has also been mapped to dorsal. It's interesting. And there's a lot more research going on nowadays about, how is the nervous system playing into all these diseases and diagnoses, and what happens if we regulate the nervous system first, then see what's left.
Well, I'm wondering about, and thank you for answering my question. I was like, adrenal fatigue, candida, chronic fatigue, fibromyalgia. What about like anxiety and depression?
Yeah,
so this has to be linked somehow.
Sure. So anxiety is an overactive sympathetic, right? It's just high alert all the time. And depression is this overactive dorsal survival response, where I'm just in this more deadened, dulled place. So for people, therapists who look at the world through diagnoses, because we have to diagnose for insurance reasons. If you look at the DSM, pretty much any diagnosis in the DSM you can map to a dysregulated nervous system of some kind or another. So and if you put all that aside and simply look at, let's be curious about how your system has been shaped and how it functions to move you through the world, then we begin to know what do we want to do to reshape it, right?
I love it. Okay, you ready? This is the speed round.
Okay.
Okay, this is the biggest question. I'm sure people are like, but wait, how do I self-regulate? Give us some examples on what if, again, like we're home, like for me in dorsal, like, okay, I now know when I feel myself start to slip into dorsal, I go take a cold shower. Tell us how do we self-regulate? What are some things that we can do right now, whether we're in fight, flight, freeze, or dorsal?
So whenever you're in a sympathetically charged response, you need to find ways to safely discharge the energy and to organize the energy in some safe way. So it's often movement of some kind. It's often uh, vocalization of some kind. So, you might listen to music, you might dance, you might sing, you might go to a yoga class, you might go to the gym, you might go for a walk. Any of these sorts of things that are actively mobilizing your system in an organized way. Whereas in dorsal, you don't have energy to run your system, and you need to be gentle in bringing it in. So what do? Nature is pretty predictably regulating of nervous system. Can you get out in nature? Can you just, if you're really in dorsal, talking to a friend can be way too much. Can you just text a friend and get a response back? And then might you end up at some point meeting a friend for coffee? But self-regulating in dorsal is tough because you're feeling lost and alone anyway. I actually like audiobooks because it brings you you hear voice and it brings you in. Netflix is great because the research says that we begin to take on the sense of one of the characters. So it is a way, music again, is a way to safely inhabit sympathetic and dorsal because we can kind of be without being hijacked by. Sometimes writing, sometimes an intention, breath. Different kinds of breathing are definitely ways that help us. What I encourage people to do, I have a mapping process I do, but I would encourage people to kind of, when you're not in sympathetic and dorsal, when you're in enough ventral to look at it, sit down and make yourself a list. Because when you get to sympathetic or dorsal, you need your list already made because then you're not going to be able to think about it. So
I was going to say, because we can't think straight when we're in that place. So
Right. Have a list and know where it is. Yeah.
When my clients are overactive or activated in some way, for me, Michelle, I love to rock very gently back and forth. That really soothes me. So I encourage my clients. But some clients, and I'll offer this to them, and they're like, that makes me feel worse. I'm like, then don't do that. Would you like my beanbag on your lap? They're like, oh, I like that. So
see, and
it's getting to know yourself, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
And never make an assumption about another person's nervous system because one thing that feels really nourishing to mine totally dysregulates yours. And so to help people know that there's no right or wrong here. This is your nervous system telling us what it needs right now. That's the guiding question. What does your nervous system need in this moment? Right? That's the question. Yeah.
Beautiful. Oh, thank you, Deb. This was so great. I again, you're like a movie star to me. I was so happy to have you on. I'm like, Deb Dana. I'm so happy.
My heart's strong right now. Thank you.
I was so happy to have you on. So thank you. And thank you. I'm going to put it on air and I'm going to record it so you can't get out of it, that you're going to come and be one of our master speakers for our adult chair coaching certification. I cannot wait to have you on that. But Deb, can't wait. But let us know where can people find you? I have already pre-ordered.
Oh boy.
Your next one. You've got a couple of things coming up, but tell us, where can people find you? What do you offer? I know you have trainings because I've already been, stalking you on all that. So talk to us about that. What's your website, everything that you have to offer?
The website is rhythmofregulation.com. And you can find everything there. I do a lot of trainings, and I have all sorts of different people in the helping professions come. I have coaches, I have licensed therapists, I have yoga people, I have body workers. So it's really because, again, the nervous system is the nervous system. We're all
exactly. Yeah.
Books. You can see the second book's coming out in spring 2020. So soon. Creating a flip chart. I'm having fun.
I know. I saw that flip chart.
Yeah.
I'm pre-ordering that too.
So yeah, and I hope your listeners will come and find me on the under the Polyvagal resources. page on my website is the Beginner's Guide to Polyvagal Theory, and that's free to download. And then I post all the webinars and audios I do. So a lot of resources there. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much for being with us today. And I'm going to keep your nervous system in balance and end on time because I know you have to leave.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
I'm respectful of your time, Deb, but thank you so much. And I will put everything you just mentioned in our show notes for people that want more information on Deb Dana. And Deb, have a beautiful rest of your day.
You as well.
Stay in ventral.
Really lovely. Yeah. Sending you ventral vagal inspired energy.
Thank you so much. All right, everybody. I'll have everything in show notes like I just said. Thank you for joining us today, as always. And I will see you seated right here next week in the adult chair.